Skoda Fabia front door lock in some detail, Mark 1, 99 to 2007. If you're having trouble with your driver's door lock, either mechanically, where after pressing the key fob it won't open, or more often electronically, when the car doesn't recognise it's either locked or unlocked, you might get the door safety lights not working, or the interior lights not coming on. Or what I had was, when I opened the door, I couldn't open the boot, but could open the boot after I'd opened another door. As you can see, it may lock randomly on its own or unlock on its own, often intermittently. These and possibly other various faults can be attributed to the driver's door lock, and in particular the microswitch within it, as over a long period of time with constant opening and closing of the door, the microswitch simply wears out and gets stuck in the closed or open position. But it's all fairly easily remedied with a new door lock. So the first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery. Then you need to take out the inner door trim panel. I'll just skip through this. If you want to know how to do this in detail, then check out my other video. I'll leave a link at the end of the video and in the description. You basically take off the control panel, slide the remaining handle forward and take out the 3 large screws. Remove the mirror adjuster panel and the small screw behind it. 3 screws at the bottom. Release the panel at the sides. Ease the panel up and then detach the release handle. Alarm and door light. Once you've got the inner trim panel off, you've got the inner carrier panel. This one's bolted on, but yours might be riveted on, in which case you'll have to drill out the rivets and then re-rivet the panel when you come to reassemble it. You have to take out the front window glass by lowering it down until you see the bottom edge window clamps in the 2 access ports behind these 2 large rubber grommets. If you've got power windows, you've got to temporarily reconnect the connection, reconnect the battery connection, turn the ignition on and wind it down that way. If the power motor's broken, then you'll have to unbolt it from the carrier and wind it down manually. In these kind of situations, I like to reattach all the electrical connections. I believe it's good practice to safeguard you getting any fault codes on your dashboard. Wind the window down until you see the 10mm bolt clamps through the access windows. Align them so you can get a socket and wrench on easily through the holes. Then release the 2 10mm bolt clamps and unwind them until the pin becomes loose, but don't take the bolts out. Then take hold of the window pane with 2 hands, gently release them from the clamps by pulling upward slightly. Don't apply much pressure, don't prise it or bend it. The pane will slide very closely to the door frame top edge. I found I could just drop the front edge down, releasing the back pillar side and then drawing it upwards, following the line of the door. Put that safe to one side, wrap it up in cotton wool or your auntie's bloomers and give a big sigh of relief that you haven't broken it. Pull off the protective bellows that house the cables going into the door. These are quite tight and you might need a screwdriver to prise them off. Try not to force them and break the clips. Then detach all the connections on the A-pillar. Each socket is a different colour and they've got the same connection, type of connection. You just got to press a little tab in the centre and then pull it out. It's a bit tight and fiddly, and again you might need a screwdriver. Here's the tab on this brown one, and I'll try and show you how to do it on the white one. Just press that tab and then pull. Feed the cables out of the bellows. Turning to the door handle, you need to remove the lock barrel. It's held in place with 2 screws, a top grub screw and a lower cam retention mechanism. Take off the 2 rubber grommets with a trim tool to save the paintwork. Here's the 2 locking screws. Insert a T20 into the top one, nearest the barrel. Pick a starting point on the shaft of your tool, and I found I needed to rotate it 4 times. If you turn this too much, you run the risk of the little grub screw falling down into the inner panel. Once you've done that, turn to the lower screw and basically unwind that until the lock barrel comes out. Make sure it's unwinding nice and evenly. If it gets stuck, wind it back in, but you should be looking to unwind it about 12 times. If you do this with the door handle open, it eventually locks the tension spring in the handle, making it easier to get the barrel out and the handle. And you need to do this if you're actually taking the handle off. But if it's rusted in, you may need some penetrating fluid and a bit of a trim tool behind it to ease it out. Pull the door handle out, try and ease the lock barrel out. It should come out really easy. A good tip is to reinsert the ignition key and just to give you a bit more purchase so you can rattle it up and down a little bit. Sometimes this can help. You can see where the grub screw fits into to lock the barrel. As you can see, the lock barrel's got a spade device at the end which turns the lock. If you look inside the lock barrel housing, you can see how the cam mechanism works. Pull the handle out and release the little cable clip attached to the handle. Remove the 2 M8x14 bolts holding the catch. Detach the connections to the wing mirror. Then loosen and take out all the bolts. Or if you've got pop rivets, then drill all the pop rivets out, making sure the drill bit is the same size as the pop rivet, taking care just to drill the rivets and not the surrounding material on the carrier or the door. Sit down and take regular tea breaks. That's enough of that. Detach the rubber gaiters on the lock indicator and the catch cable. Then split the seal all the way around the carrier. You'll find it's just stuck there. I've had this off before, so it comes off easy. and slowly but surely jiggle the carrier out of the door together with the attached lock mechanism. Although my hanger's broken on mine, trying to yank it out without taking the bolts off on the catch on a previous occasion, which you must do first. Here's the carrier with the lock attach. Disconnect the electrical connection, just pull up the tab and pull off. Turning it over, push the grommets through the carrier itself. Locate the holding tab just here, and you need to push down on the clip and push it out, and at the same time ease all the other cables out of the carrier. Be careful not to bend or twist, especially the indicator arm, as this can break the actual catch. Once you've got it free, you can move the indicator arm about 90 degrees to one side and then gently take it out. Pull the release catch Bowden cable out of the holder, again turn 90 degrees and remove the angled nipple end. There's a number of different models of these depending on which type of central locking that you have. So be sure to buy the right one for your model of car. As I've mentioned on previous occasions, these catches eventually wear out, but it's usually the microswitch within the catch itself that goes first. As with constant opening and closing, the actual switch itself wears down. You could of course replace just the switch if you can get hold of one. It's just a simple spring clip that holds it in place. Just use a small flat bladed screwdriver and prise it off. Then it just pushes out on the little locating pins. This one being an aftermarket unit, refitted about 6 years ago, and as you can see it shows some signs of wear, although the microswitch still works and functions. So I'm just going to put mine back as it is, wait till it fails and then replace it. Obviously a new OEM catch is going to last longer. Oh, and this is the remnants of that hanger that I broke many years ago and tried to glue it back on, but obviously glue's not up to the job. Replace the indicator arm rod. And the Bowden release catch cable. And reinsert back into the carrier. Feeding the rubber gaiters through. Then just attach it to the plastic hanger. I'm going to put this plastic piece back, I don't know why. Reattach the electrical connection. And reinsert it back into the door. Try and feed the electrical cables through the end of the door. Gently jiggling it into place until the two side pins marry up onto the door. Once the pins are located, then you can replace all the bolts or replace all the pop rivets. Place all the bolts in loose to start with. You can put some Loctite on if you want. And then initially tighten the bolts from the centre outwards, randomly. Then retighten them all to the correct torque, which in this case is 8 Newton meters, tightened in random sequence. Replace the two catch bolts with a little bit of thread lock on them. And tighten to the correct torque. Fish out the little catch cable and press home the lugged end into the tooth slot on the handle in the closed position with the cable rested, not tight or loose. Replace the lock barrel and tighten home the screws. You should hear a click when you tighten home the lower cam lock. Then replace the two grommets. Refit the glass by sliding it in at an angle. Use rubber gloves and eye protection. Ease it down into position. Again, don't force it or bend it in any way. Take your time and keep hold of it at all times. Ease it towards the front of the door and then the rear will just slot in and down, marrying up with the pillar slot. You should be able to feel it going into the clips. Make sure it's firmly down into place. Then tighten each retaining bolt. To the correct torque. Refit the electrical connections. At this stage I like to fit all the connections and then just test the window works before putting the inner trim panel back. If you wind the window to the top and then hold it in that position for 3 seconds, it resets the winding mechanism, and in particular the window override. Thoroughly test the lock. Manually as well. That's all working fine. All we've got to do is put the inner panel back and the job's done. Oh, and I forgot the rubber bits. Shove all those back, make sure they're all nicely seated, stops any moisture getting in. Before you put the panel back on, it's a good idea to tie some string to the electrical connections, which makes them easier to fish out when you've got the panel back on. And the job's a good one. And thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you out, guys, and found it useful in some way. Please like, share and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.